What one thing do you wish you'd have been told 10 years ago?
Gosh, first of all, I'm like, oh my God, how old was I 10 years ago? It was like the first thing that came into my head. Like, oh my gosh, time is gone. Um, but 10 years ago was quite a pivotal time for me because I just had my son. And prior to that experience, I'd been, I was quite fortunate. I graduated from uni, went pretty much straight into a job within 6 months. So I was literally out and then straight into work. So by that point, I'd been, working for a good kind of 6, 7 years. Um, but what I observed in those 6, 7 years was a marketing culture, but I think it was just corporate culture at the time that I didn't see many examples of, you know, parents, women and men that were successfully balancing a career and being a parent. And I observed, you know, women feeling guilty leaving the office at 4 p.m. And then, because I was one of the younger ones without kids, you hear the conversations as they leave, like, oh, they're leaving at 4 again, or we can't put that meeting in because they've got to leave at
Mhm.
4, or they don't work Fridays. So as I became, obviously pregnant and I was happy, but part of me actually really mourned my career because I didn't believe I could successfully have the two. Um, so I kind of, I went for a whole moment of my career's over. I'm going to have to change industry. I don't know if I can do my job and be a parent. So I think the advice that I would give myself in that moment was becoming a parent is going to be an undeniable superpower that is going to make you a significantly better marketeer. A, because it just gave me a empathy and a perspective that, I don't know, I just felt a lot more connected as a human being. It sounds lofty, but that's the truth. I felt
Mhm.
really connected as a human being, which made me a lot more empathetic, a lot more insightful. And the other area was I just became fantastic at managing time. I became a lot more efficient, um, and a lot more focused in terms of really prioritizing the things that matter. So I went from feeling like my career was over, and I went for a whole period of really mourning. I'm not going to able to really fulfill my potential, to actually realizing actually it is going to be hard. It is hard juggling, but it would be the best thing that's ever happened to me. And I just wish if I could go back to myself in that moment, I would really tell myself that, because I genuinely believe something different.
What a start. What an answer. Thank you very much for that. So, hey up and welcome to the strategy sessions. My name is Andy Jarvis. I'm the host of the show and the strategy director at Eximo Marketing. I am here to welcome you to season 4 of the strategy sessions. You just heard a wonderful intro there from the guest of today's episode 1, season 4. And you'll hear a bit more about that guest, who they are and what they have to say in the next couple of minutes. But before we do that, I just want to tell you a few things about season 4. What's going to be different? Not a lot, actually. It's going to be great interviews with great guests, sharing their marketing story, their marketing history, and giving you some hints and tips along the way. If you came here because you listened to Rory Sutherland at the end of season 3, I've got some fantastic news for you. He's going to do part 2, and that'll be coming out in a couple of months. He's got something big on at the minute, which we'll probably talk about when he does the episode. So it's broadly going to be the same. Tune in, episode every 3 weeks, generally speaking, and you can tune in and hear some great marketers. I say generally speaking every 3 weeks. Why is that? Well, because this is episode 1 of the series and it is October. October in the UK is Black History Month. If you're listening in the US and going, Black History Month's not October. It is here in the UK. It's not in the US. We'll maybe talk about that another time. So we're celebrating the best black marketing talent in the UK in Black History Month. And as a special feature, we're going to do an episode a week. There's Tuesdays, our release date, and there's 5 Tuesdays. So we're going to do 5 episodes. And this is the first one. So let's get back to the guest, right? Because I could waffle on for ages about why I'm doing this and how wonderful it is. But I just want you to listen to this guest, because that opening answer that you've just heard is amazing. And let's hear what else that she has to say. So here we are. Let's get into the episode. As always, like the episode, share it with your friends, give it a 5-star rating if you can, subscribe if you're on YouTube, all the usual stuff podcasters say. Just do it. But mainly, put your earphones in and have a listen to today's guest, Sherice. She's fantastic. So if you are listening and you're wondering whose voice is that, that is Sherice Anibaba, who is the head of brand at Greene King. Sherice, welcome to the strategy sessions. And thank you for that amazing start to the show. How are you doing?
Yeah, I'm good. Thank you. I'm excited to be talking to you. Yeah, I really can't wait to just get into it.
Thank you. I'm going to park some of the things you've just mentioned there. I am going to come back to them because I think there's some really, really important subjects there. And what I want to do is just to go right back to the beginning of your career first, because I think that will help frame some of the things you've just said. And then we can dive into that as well, then talk about your future career to find out if your career did die by becoming a parent. Spoiler alert, I don't think but let's see where we get to. If you're watching the video as well, apologies, you probably can't see too much of me, but that's not necessarily a bad thing. We've got some sunshine, it's autumn, and I'm not closing the curtain, so I'm just going to be overexposed. That's fine, don't worry about it. So, Sherice, let's start with where you started your career. You started at McDonald's, and I find this a really interesting place to learn to cut your teeth. What was it like working at McDonald's?
It was brilliant. It was just, yeah, it was an amazing training ground. Because I was surrounded by just some of the best marketing brains, the best agency partners, and it's not often in your career or many people get to experience what amazing looks like, and what a successful organization, marketing team, agency client relationship, what that really looks like. And I was just really, really fortunate to be at McDonald's specifically at that time, because when I joined the business, it was just coming out of the back of the whole Supersize Me, and we were just coming out, or we're just around it in a recession. So it was a really kind of quite tumultuous time for the business. And actually being part of the team and understanding like the pivot and what moves to make, what not moves to make. It was just an amazing experience, actually, that I even, lean on now. And, I got to experience at, very, very early on in my career, probably things that people much later on in the career don't experience, from shooting, I think one year we did like 6 or 7 TV ads in one year, huge outdoor campaigns, lots of, innovation. And at that time, there was a lot of innovation coming through, which is McDonald's actually doesn't bring a lot of new innovation to market, but at that time there was quite a lot of change, and it was just a really exciting place to be. And I really felt like I was in a context that I literally could do anything that I wanted. Like, I was really giving the space to grow, to be successful, to make, have failures and learn from them. It was just a really great training ground, and I was really nurtured while being there.
I'd forgotten about the Supersize Me show and, and the huge debate that caused. But I did go into McDonald's recently, probably for the first time in maybe a decade or more. I'm old these days and not a core customer for McDonald's, but now with the daughter, I went into a McDonald's. I was amazed at kind of what was still broadly the same, but how much of it had changed. Was that all driven off the back of the Supersize Me debate, an issue that forced a relook into what a McDonald's restaurant looks like?
Yeah, I think what was really interesting at the time is from a CSR perspective, and they've been pretty consistent, for the last 15, 20 years around being really honest and open about what goes into the product, and really being true to the messages of it's 100% beef. They use organic milk in their coffees, in their tea. That I the beef is the beef that goes into the beef burgers is 4/4 and flank. These things that get drummed into you from like a so
Beaten into you from an early stage.
yeah, I remember all of the quality messaging. It's been pretty consistent and had been, and I think we were at a time where actually, as a society, we were obviously looking for more choice and more balance, particularly as when you're at that end of the market, you are serving, customers who financially may not have many other choices. So being able to have a choice, be it I really want to treat myself and I want a cheeseburger and a McFlurry, or actually I want something that's going to be good for me at a price that's affordable. So what was really interesting at that time was of ultimately is given that choice. So whilst I was there, I worked on the wraps and the salads platforms, which was super, super interesting, and obviously is still there today. And I think ultimately what I took from that experience, and what I've really held with me throughout my career, be it working in food or drinks brands, is you have a responsibility to provide choice, and making sure that choice is balanced, particularly when you're serving a segment of the market that is less affluent. So maybe maybe don't have the means or the money to have those choices available to them. And there are different occasions. So you might have some occasions that are a bit more indulgent versus you might not want a quarter pounder McFlurry and large fries at lunchtime, but a wrap and a Diet Coke will be okay. So I think, yeah, for me, having that choice and balance was really, really key. And that's been consistent. I think they've maintained that from, when that first came out to what is happening even today.
And innovation's a thread that stayed with you throughout your career. But before we dive into that, I just want to go back to the learning experience at McDonald's as well, because I know from talking to a lot of people who work in retail that at some point during the year they go and from head office or marketing or wherever go and spend some time on the shop floor. But you spent a lot of time on the shop floor as part of them. What's that ethos at McDonald's about making sure everyone spends some time, connected to the customer?
Yeah, this was an amazing, this is something that I've like has stayed with me my entire career. So before you join the business, you have to do, as part of your induction, you have to do 2 weeks in a restaurant of your choice. It's usually your local one, where you work for 2 weeks, and usually you're more of a hindrance than a help to the store. So they're like, oh, here we go, someone from head
Someone else from head
office,
office here.
head office. And you're there for 2 weeks, but it's brilliant because you do everything from understanding how to make all the core ingredients, to tills, to interacting with the customers, to cleaning. So you really understand the machine that the machine that you're a part of from a head office perspective. It really makes sense because that's the point of execution and delivery. You understand the 100, 200 decisions that are made prior to that to make that moment a as as special as it can be for that customer in that moment, but b as efficient, as operationally excellent, and also dealing with a team of people who could range from like age 16 to 75. It's a job that is accessible to everybody, because actually there's a whole ecosystem behind them that has great training and quite great development. So yeah, it's a fantastic philosophy. And actually it's not just the 2 weeks. So during my time there, I built up great relationships with some franchisees who became really great supporters of, whenever I was thinking of something, I would have one of them I'll call and go, I've got this idea, what do you think? And they'll go, yes, Sherice, or no, Sherice, it won't work. I spent a lot of time with the categories I worked in, just sitting in a restaurant and observing people, seeing how they engage with the product and what they were doing, and just a customer behavior, the types of people that came in. It's a really great philosophy, and I think it's really born from the fact that you could be a crew member and CEO one day. And actually, one of my good friends, we came in as graduates at the same time. He started as a crew member, came in as a placement student. We both came in as graduates, and he's now head of marketing there. But he started in as a crew member in the McDonald's business. So I think as a philosophy, it's really true. There's so many people in the business that started like on the shop floor and now are in really senior roles. So it literally is one of those businesses that you can go in and almost the sky's the limit. Like you can really realize your potential and your dreams, like the opportunity is there for you. I think that's this amazing philosophy.
I think there's something really important about staying customer centric in a marketing role. And I talk frequently about a conference I was at in Athens, Greece, earlier this year, where there was 300 e-commerce practitioners in the room. And I asked the question in the Q&A at the end of the audience. I was like, how many of you have spoken to a customer in the last 6 months? And I made it clear I was talking about actually exchanging information, not just reading a customer report, for example. And 6 people put their hand up. 6 in a room of 300 had a conversation with a customer. Now, I know, look, McDonald's is a restaurant and you've worked in retail, but that's maybe an easier bridge to cross. But how you can be a marketer without understanding your customer is just beyond me. How do you do your job if you don't understand the people who are buying the product? I don't get it. I just don't know how we do it. How do we get into this position where people don't talk to them?
I think it's tough, and it's as you get more senior in the business, you're often there, and the senior management team below you are preparing you reports and presentations and decks, and so you can see how it happens. But I feel like if you're in that moment where you've gone, actually, my understanding of my customer is a swanky segmentation or term that a marketer or a brand person has made up, and actually I've not actually really spoken to them, and actually I myself am probably now completely disconnected from that sector of society. And I would just always say it's something that stayed with me, be it in my time at Speedo. I often slightly weird, but if I was in the changing room and somebody wasn't wearing a Speedo, I'd be like, you're not wearing a Speedo, why? Or if they're wearing a Speedo, I go, oh, you're wearing the racerback, like, have you talk to me about it? Or someone's got goggles on, oh, you got Speedo goggles. Or if they haven't got Speedo goggles, why have you not got Speedo goggles on?
I can see this I can see me using this in my defense in court, and it's like, so why were you arrested for pestering people in the swimming changing rooms, Andrew? Well, Sherice told me that it's market research and that's what I needed to do. So I'm like, look, I've got it on the podcast. I'll play it back.
But it's so insightful. Honestly, it's so insightful. Be it, one woman said to me, oh, I can't be asked for Speedos because you have to size up about 2-3 sizes, and I just don't like the idea of having to buy a size 16 when I'm not a size 16 or whatever size it is. So
that's such an emotive response, isn't it, to a practical product? But people are like that. People are messy, complicated, difficult, and they don't fit into these lovely little boxes. And I say if I can't draw it in a pyramid, it's not marketing. But people don't always fit into upside down pyramids and circles and bullseye charts and things, do they? So
or they don't care enough. They'll be like, oh well, it's just the same, isn't it? It's just it's no different.
Why did you buy that swimming costume? I don't know. I went in to buy one and it was the first
It was
one
the
I
first
saw.
one there. Yeah,
Oh,
exactly.
right,
So
okay. Yeah.
so yeah, it's something that's really stayed with me in any, and I don't think even if you are working in consumer goods or retailer where you're a little bit more removed from the customer, you can still go, into your supermarkets and go down to your aisle and
Mhm.
observe people. What are they doing? How are they picking that you product up? Are they looking around? Where are they looking? And you can still be that weirdo that asks them questions, and I'm also that person as well.
You're my type of weird. I like that. I like that. So from McDonald's, you moved through. You were a New York bagel company in Britvic, so you stayed in kind of food and drink as a
Yeah.
broad category. What were those two jobs like before? And then we'll talk about the other food and drink job as well that you went into.
Yeah, so New York Bakery Bagel was a really, really great role. It was very different. So coming from a big, huge global business, going to New York Bakery Bagel, which was probably, I would say, kind of a small size of like a scale up. So a very
Hmm.
small team. There's probably about 5 or 6 of us. There's only 2 of us in brand and marketing, and we did absolutely everything. So going from a marketing team of like 40 people to a marketing team of like two, there's 2 of you and I'm one of the two. It was like a bit of a shock to the system, but it was amazing because it really stress tested my skills. So all of
Hmm.
that kind of that infrastructure and that training support that I got at McDonald's, it really it stress tested them. People thought I was crazy making that move, but honestly, I think it was the best decision I did make in my career at the time. Because it actually enabled me to just have some freedom and try some stuff. The marketing director I was working with he was just like, what do you want to do? What do you want to change? What do you like? What don't you like? So there was that real freedom to explore and be strategically creative. And also I learned in that role, it was my first consumer goods role, but our offices were above the factory, and we had another factory in Rotherham, and it was the first time I'd worked on like a manufacturing business, and it actually taught me the power of having that connection down to the factory floor. So this, as you can start to see, if it's not customers,
Yeah.
but having that connection again to the product, the people that are making your product, and really learning how the manufacturing process works, and as marketeers, how you can add value in when you start to understand how your product is made, and the costs associated with that. So that was just a really, really great experience of just being able to be quite entrepreneurial, be quite agile, and having the freedom and the space to be quite innovative.
I think that's a real important point, and one that when I die, somebody will probably write on my gravestone. Andy always said, "Talk to your customers." It's kind of almost becomes a thing I'm known for now, but it's a really important point there about having to have that connection with manufacturing, because as a
Yeah.
marketer, you can listen to customers, you can come up with all sorts of wacky, weird, and wonderful ideas. But when the rubber hits the road and you pop down to see manufacturing and they go, well, you can do that, but you've just quadrupled the price of the product.
Yeah.
Oh, and it's going to take us an extra 6 months to be able to make it. And we're going to have to turn the production line off while we regear it all. And you've just cost the company 8 million quid. Right. Or
Yeah.
whatever, whatever that might be. But having that connection really helps drive innovation, doesn't it? Because
Yeah,
I think
it does.
I always think there's a problem with innovation. People think innovation is this blank piece of paper with no boundaries and no wild ideas.
Mm.
But I actually think it works the other way. I think innovation comes when you draw boundaries around
Yeah.
something. These are the restrictions we have. Now, what can we do?
Yeah.
I think,
100%.
is that right, wrong? How does that, kind of
No,
with your experience?
I 100% agree. So like the and also after the people that are working with your product day in, day out, so the people on their line, like they sometimes will have ideas themselves. They might be like, oh, Sherice, I've always wondered what would happen if I put this in it, or so they're actually
Yeah.
a really good source of like ideas because they understand how the equipment work. But it means you can just ask some really interesting questions like, okay, this process, if I add in this ingredient, what would happen? Will it still work? It just enables you to understand at what point within that, as it goes through the line, where you can add something different or better? Or, if I leave it in a little bit longer there, is that going to give me a benefit actually that actually makes it more distinctive versus the rest of the category? If we roast it for a little bit longer, or if we prove it for a little bit, or, it enables you to understand, because, everyone in your category is going to have very similar kit, if you're, but then if you understand how that kit works and where you can either make it better, different, add something in, it inherently will give you potentially an advantage that, your competitors in your category may not even realized yet. And then if that benefit then equals a customer benefit or is in line with the trends, and then almost there is your holy grail. So I think, yeah, it's probably something I think not many marketers do, or they may be too far from the manufacturing plants, but it's something that I would always encourage marketers to do. Get to your line, understand how your product is made, and really understand how you can add value also in a way that's not going to drive £1 million of capex or
Exactly. I think that,
significantly change your process.
so I think that one of the big takeaways from this episode particularly, we're not when it finished yet, but is that to be a good marketer, you've got to get off your chair.
Yeah.
I used to have a boss who called it marketing by walking about.
Yeah.
By that, she meant get off your backside, go and talk to the customer, go and watch what they do, but
Yeah.
also go and talk to the people in production as well, and kind of, walk about, just go and get down, which I think comes from your McDonald's days of being on the
100%.
troop.
Yeah, 100%. I think so. And actually, interestingly, my mum, who is quite I always think if she did some, she's a social worker, but she did something different, like she probably would work in like food or drink like innovations, because she's always like mixing stuff and like creating her own concoctions, and she always used to say to me, oh, why don't you just mix it yourself and see what happens? Or, so she's also, I think, as I've been going out for my career, she's also quite grounded me in, just have a go, try it, just be creative. So I think, yeah, 100% get off your seat, be curious. Yes, you need the strategy, yes, you need the brief, but also just be quite playful, have fun, and try some stuff. Some things will work and some things, won't, but that's okay.
So from there, you moved into working at Britvic, where you got your hands on like the grand old lady, for want of a better phrase, of a brand in that category. So what happened there? What was that like? And what brand was it as well? I'll let you explain.
Yeah, so I joined Britvic, and I worked in Robinson's, which, so even before joining Robinson's, I was a huge, I still am a huge Robinson's fan. I'm not really a fruit juice drinker, and I struggle to drink water, so squash is my drink of choice. And I was so excited to join Robinson's because as a category at that time, it was just quite dull. It's quite, there was only really a couple of flavors, and there really wasn't much distinctiveness between own label and the branded players. And I was just like, wow, it's an amazing brand, but like, what is its reason for being? Like, why is it better? Why is it different? And actually, the taste is just as good sometimes, depending on which own label brand you buy. So
Very subjective, isn't it, at that stage?
Yes, yeah, it's really subjective. So there was no real, it kind of lost its way a little bit. And so I was really excited at the concept of, taking that brand and driving some meaning behind it and creating, pulling out the brand story and doing something with the brand that was distinctive. And that led to being part of what would now is it won the Marketing Week's Innovation Award, Project Revitalized, which basically looked at creating a completely new innovation pipeline for Robinson's. So it was a new range of drinks, ready to drinks as well, with Robinson's refreshed. So that was a really, really great example of taking something that was, some could say quite old, quite tired, and just breathing some life into it. And again, understanding the product and what makes it different and better, but being really clear on what that benefit was to the customer, which at that time was real fruit, and being really creative in terms of how you present that to the customer, but also extending the brand into new occasions. So there's often a term of being Robinson's being tied to the tap. So Robinson's Refresh was interesting. So actually taking inspiration from my mum, I had an idea for a ready to drink. And I remember my first presentation in the activity exec, I actually made some, like I said, this, I put some in the bottle, created like the color, and I said, this is what I think it could look like the color of the squashes is what I think the drink could taste like.
So you went full Dragon's Den with it.
I went full Dragon's Den with it, but I went full Dragon's Den with it because I knew there were some naysayers in the business that would say, it would never work. We've done it before. So I was like, no, like if you, and I think this is another point, like if you've got an idea as a brand person that you really want to champion, go full Dragon's Den, like bring it to life, make it tangible for people, make it memorable when you're presenting. So really like think about all the senses, and I think that's what I did in that moment, and I got the go ahead to do it, and it actually became one of the biggest soft drink launches of that year, and it's still listed today, which actually is a is quite interesting for innovation to last a test of time, and it delivered everything that when I said it was going to be half the size of Ribena, people at the time are looking at me like, what? And it is. So again, I think going back to that idea of get off your seat, be creative, be playful, throw things around, and be really innovative and creative about your innovation, and in terms of how you present it to the business, but also how you story tell that, when you're in meetings and in forums. I think if you really believe in something, I think having that entrepreneurial, like almost startup energy, even within quite a corporate space, I think is brilliant, because you're selling it constantly to your customers, but you're also selling it internally, and then obviously to your retailers as well.
Yeah, I'm sure Paul Maya-Angelou rolls in a grave every time a marketer says quotes her, but it really resonates with me at times like this, where it's people don't remember what you say, but they remember how you make them feel.
Yeah,
and that's the thing. You could have put 50 slides together in a deck about that product, might never have got off the ground. You bring it to life and people go, oh yeah, they see the passion, they see the commitment, and they really buy into that, which I think is another great lesson to take.
100%.
But if my maths is correct, it was around this time, to go right back to the beginning and what you said about becoming a mum, that was happening around this sort of time. So I'm not pointing fingers at employers or anything like that, but I don't want to kind of skip over some of the things you said.
Yeah.
I've as someone who's brought up in a single parent family, always thought it's madness how the whole working world has almost kind of thrown women on the scrap heap when they have kids for so long. It just seems like utterly ludicrous to me, but it happens, and I'm pretty sure it still happens. I'm absolutely certain. But what was your experience like then? You had this fear and this concern that your career was going to disappear because you were having a family.
Yeah. So yeah, your timeline is right. So actually, interestingly, I like my confidence at that time had really taken a knock. Because I think actually it was more perception than reality. I perceived the story I was telling myself was that I couldn't go for the big roles, I couldn't. And often it happens to women, also happens to men, like imposter syndrome at that time. You've been out of work for a year, it's at its all-time high, and the gremlins are talking very loudly. And I was working actually with a recruitment consultant, and she actually says, oh, I think you should go for this role. And I was like, no, I can't do it, they're never going to take me. And she's like, just try, Sherice, just go for it. And do you know what, I really I actually reached out to her after some years after that to say thank you, because of the headspace I was in, and she recognized that she really like pushed me, encouraged me to go for it, whereas I was like, I can't do it. And I did it, and I got the job.
It is like those quiet moments. My brother refers to them as the brain weasels, which
Yeah.
where they just keep chirping away, telling you that you can't do something, that it's not going to be there, and it's an awful space to be in, isn't it? And it does
Yeah.
sometimes take external intervention to get you out of that space.
Yeah, 100%. So yeah, but I did, and I think actually that really gave me like confidence. It brought my confidence back to say, okay, I've given birth, I've had my year off, and now I've done this. And actually it made me feel like, well, I've done all of that, like I'm a superwoman. Like the world is my
Absolutely,
oyster
yeah.
now, and I can really grab it by the balls. And so yeah, I think having, probably what I would also say at that time is having some support, be it I had the recruitment consult, but obviously now it's a different time where you could, whether your employers have like return to work schemes or mentorship, or getting yourself a coach or anything, just to kind of disrupt or interrupt some of the stories that you might be telling yourself for all
Mhm.
different reasons at that time. I think is so important to both women and to men who are returning to work. But it could be due to childbirth, it could be lots of different reasons. Yeah, it
And
was
do
really
you think?
pivotal for me.
Sorry. So, do you think that because you told me beforehand, obviously that you've got a younger child as well, and in the gap between the two, do you think the work world has changed for the better for mothers, or did you still recognize the same sort of pressures on as you were going through the second child? Did you still recognize the same sort of pressures on a mum?
So I actually think it has moved on. I think things have improved
Mm-hmm.
from, you know, the world of work that I was in when I had my first child was very different to I think the expectation was very different. There was no work-life balance. We all worked till 7, 8 o'clock, finish work, put our heels on, and went out for drinks afterwards. That was the culture. Whereas
Mm-hmm.
now I think employers are a little bit more respectful of work-life balance. And I think obviously COVID has shifted that dramatically, of
Mm-hmm.
understanding that people have things they want to do, be it children or pets, or caring for relatives, or just time for yourselves. I think employers are a lot more respectful of that than they were 10 years ago. And also I think we'll come on to talk about it, but I was fortunate enough to be on the marketing academy, and in that you have access to mentorship from, I think in the end I had about 9 mentoring sessions with CMOs from all different sectors and industries. And what was really pivotal to me was how a lot of these women and men, there were parents and mothers who were balancing successful careers, had written books, were working 4 days a week, and had this construct of just life as a whole, not just work, but life that really served them. And that just completely reframed for me what my working life and career could look like. So that really helped, actually, going into my now 18-month-year-old. That really helped frame that experience to go, okay, how do I organize my life in a way that fulfills me with my career, fulfills my purpose, my values, but also enables me to be present in the way that I want to be with my daughter. So that experience, I think, almost seeing what it could look like through that mentorship, just helped reframe a lot of the kind of the myths or the stories I'd been telling myself up until that point. So I think that was a real shift for me, which meant that I could quite confidently go into my next role and go, I want to work 4 days a week, and I want to, do some consulting and voluntary work on the side, because that's really important to me. I was a lot more confident in orchestrating and creating the infrastructure of the work and career life that served myself and my family, and ultimately what I saw is like that was success for me.
Yeah. Fantastic. And that's a great I love that story, listening to that, and I love the impact of mentoring and support in that, which came through the Marketing Academy. So let's talk about that. I don't think I've heard a bad thing about the Marketing Academy. We've had Amy Smith previously on the podcast who's been through that. Just give us the highlights of that experience, because it's a gold standard, isn't it, of kind of great training to be through.
Yeah, it's, oh my gosh. I'm not sure what Amy said, but and everyone says to me, like, what's the Marketing Academy like? Should I do it? And I'm just like, yes, yes, yes. It changed my life. If I'm being like it changed my life. It completely reframed my idea of leadership and what it meant to be a leader, not just in the workplace, but in all facets of my life. It really helped align my values and what I'm here to do, like what's my role in the world and where do I fit into that, what value do I need to bring. It really solidified that. And just having 30 others or 29 other scholars who are on the program with you, you're just surrounded by the most incredible people who are, you know, smart and intelligent, but also grounded by like stories of like, you know, you see this person, you see the title, but then actually when you hear their story, you're like, wow, that's so amazing. It's so inspirational. So even that in itself, just being in the, you know, in 29 other people's presence is massively impactful. And obviously, as I mentioned, the mentorship is just amazing that you have access to, you know, some of the, you know, the biggest CMOs in the business who are just so generous, so helpful with their time, really supportive, and really lay out to you, you know, how to. So one of the interesting things is, and I think for me is, you know, I'm probably the only person within my family that is in kind of corporate or marketing and advertising. So I don't have the benefit of like somebody else like telling me what to do, how to navigate the spaces, how to navigate the rooms. So I often found actually when I got to a certain level, I'm like, how do I navigate this? Like, where's the manual? Who tells you what to do here?
Make it up quick.
Yeah. And actually being part of a program, but having the mentorship to help you navigate some of the tricky situations, or it's just fantastic. So I'm a huge advocate for the program. It's so much more than just the marketing program. It's a leadership philosophy that, you know, as soon as I see, you know, somebody that has been on the Marketing Academy or a CMO that's been on the fellow program, I automatically feel the connection with them, because I'm like, okay, you buy into the same philosophy as I do in terms of leadership and using brand and marketing as a force for good and being a change maker, and paying it forward and paying, you know, giving back to, you know, and paving the way. So yeah, it's an incredible program.
I do want to, again, I feel I'm bouncing around a little bit. I want to come back to that about using marketing as a force for good, because some of the voluntary stuff you do now. Before you do that, I just want to touch on a short-term role you had at Innocent Smoothies as a group marketing manager and innovation. So innovation at Innocent Smoothies, but tell us about that time you had there.
Yeah, so like Innocent was one of those like jobs where I'm a very values led person, so I really do believe in brand and marketing as a force for good, having a positive impact on people and planet. So actually, when it's not very often where you have your core values, your personal values align with like a brand or work values, like you're backed and barking. So for me, it was a huge alignment. So I was like really excited. And yeah, as an organization, it's super interesting because actually it does really live by those values. So, you know, everything that they, you know, put in their packaging, it's true. You know, the full transparency is they really go to the nth degree to make things that they're sustainable, that they're having a positive impact on the world. But also what was quite interesting for me at that point was I'd been quite lucky in the sense of, you know, at McDonald's, I was in an environment and a space where I was given freedom to succeed. Like I felt like I could do anything, be anything. There was really that path. Same at New York Bakery Bakers. I've been really, really fortunate at that time to be in spaces that felt like they were for me. I never really observed my like difference in terms of my background or race or sexuality or anything, or I just felt like I could just be me. And I think that role for me was the first time where I actually felt like, oh, I'm different. I'm different here. Like I've got a Midlands accent. I'm my socioeconomic status is different. Like it was very evident I was quite different, and I found that very difficult to navigate actually. And I think obviously innocent of as all organizations do, they've got some work to do, and I think they really acknowledged it themselves of creating an environment that feels where everyone is equitable and is inclusive, and where everyone can just be who they are, because ultimately if you create that environment you get the most out of people. So for me culturally I was like, this is probably not somewhere that is for me right now, but that's not to say in the future that it may not be. So I think that they've done a lot of work since then in terms of making a space that feels more welcoming to everybody. So yeah, it was an interesting point in my career that it was the first time that I'd felt that. And often when you feel that, it's quite hard to articulate to people. Like I just don't feel like I fit in. I don't feel like I wanted it. And sometimes you feel like it's in your head. You're like, no, it's not in my head. Like, yeah.
And it's actually it's really easy to explain to someone who's had that, and really
Yeah.
difficult to explain to somebody who's never had that.
Yeah.
I remember having a conversation with someone. It's like, when did you realize you were different? I'm like, never. I'm like, well, why? And it's because I've always been this way. It's like other people point out to you sometimes that you're different.
Yeah.
And that's a really difficult conversation. It happened to me at school, and like I used to get chased home sometimes by the local racist kids, which was a great experience as an 8-year-old child.
Oh man.
But you don't realize you're different until they're telling you are, because
Yeah.
you don't grow up looking in the mirror going,
No.
why do I look this way? Or you're normal. This is me. This is who I am. It's only when other people start pointing it out to you and you go, well, but am I different, or is it you that's got it wrong? But when you've lived that, it's, as soon as you said it, I know exactly what you mean.
Yeah.
The other people listening to this who've maybe never experienced that and going, I don't quite get what she's talking about.
Yeah.
And that's okay that you don't get it. But
Yeah.
let's talk. Let's have those conversations. That's what we're here for. So.
Yeah, 100%. And I probably didn't have the language at the time to really articulate it. But yeah, it was a really interesting experience for me, because I was like, oh, okay, there's still work to do. There's still work to do in the industry. There's still work to do at organizational level. And I think it kind of lit up a fire in me a little bit. Because I was like, well, I've had some amazing experiences to this point. I worked with some amazing organizations and I've got great, and if I feel like this, then what does the first time graduate who've just come out of university feel like? So that was almost like a little bit of a fire that started in me of actually wanting to influence and trying support organizations, support individuals of creating spaces that are a bit more inclusive, and also supporting the next generation in terms of how to kind of navigate spaces that sometimes will be for you, and sometimes you will have that feeling that we've just articulated of, oh my God, I'm different here. How do I navigate it? So yeah, that was almost the start. That was a bit of a catalyst for me.
We had years ago, early on in the podcast, we did an edition called the Black Edition after George Floyd was murdered, and some American guests on. Isha Edwards talks about Rubik's cubing your organization, and by that she meant it's not just about what you say at the top. You've got to kind of align all those things as well, so you deliver them throughout the organization, and that's really critical, because when you're saying it's like, I didn't have the language for that, and I know I know exactly what you mean, but that's when you say we've got a great culture. To me, what that means as an organization is people, even if they're struggling with the language, well, you probably shouldn't feel like that in the first place if you've got a great
Mm.
culture. But if you do have that culture, it should be easy for them to be able to kind of go, I have an unspecified blob of feedback for you, and let's try and work through that. And I think that's what kind of Rubik's cubing your organization means, is not having everything perfect, but
Yeah.
having it so that things can be raised and sorted if they do go wrong. And I think that's an important part of it, isn't it? That's maybe not always easy to do, very difficult to do, but it's easy to talk about.
100%.
But you've sort of jumped forward to you are values driven, and you said that you've mentioned that a couple of times. So you do some voluntary work with Add Salt. Can you tell us a little bit about sort of that organization and what you do there?
Yeah, so Add Salt is just, well, the organization's called Salt, of which Add is one of the areas that they focus on. So as a whole, as an ethos, they're an organization that seeks to drive change within the consumer goods industry to make it more equitable and more inclusive for individuals and brands. So there's Salt Rise, that is a mentoring program that supports young people from Black or backgrounds disadvantaged from a socioeconomic perspective get their first role in mentorship. And Add Salt is essentially a brand accelerator program that supports startups or scale ups, get them retailer ready or investment ready. So they're supported. They go through like a 12-week program where they have a range of consultants from brand to investment to category, and it's an ecosystem that sits behind the founders to get them ready for whether it be investment presentations or retailer sell-ins. And it's a fantastic program because I think coming out of the back of George Floyd, as a lot of people did, I had that moment of, this is awful, this is terrible, but what do I do? Like, I want to do something, and I don't know what that something is, and I'm quite action orientated. So I was like, okay, whatever I do, it needs to make an impact. Like, I want to have a genuine impact on either a group or an individual for good. And Add Salt is exactly that. All the consultants that work on that, you genuinely are impacting someone's life. I've worked with founders who, have got the most amazing product, and, you work with them developing their brand and their positioning and their, you get to this, great selling story, and they're balancing that with, a full-time job as a carer, or they're a sole founder where it's just them, and they're boxing that, they're making their product, they're doing all the labeling, they're shipping everything to Amazon or to a retailer, and and they're like, oh my god, I've not had someone with me to help me before. So you really are genuinely impacting people's lives for the better, and ultimately helping them get their product onto supermarket shelves, or into pure play, or different retailers or e-commerce. So it's a fantastic philosophy and an amazing program, and I just feel really fortunate to be part of it, to be honest.
I think they're really fortunate to have you as well. I think your passion for it comes through. Your passion for inclusivity, diversity all comes through as well. But also being as sharp as they come when it comes to what you do. And that's just a great combination, to have that passion and that fire in along with those skills as well. Fantastic. So I'm now trying to think up an idea I can then push to get on that accelerator program.
Yeah.
But anyway, that's a job for a different day. So before we wrap up, tell us about your current role. So you're at Greene King as head of brand. Talk to me about that. And again, tell people who Greene King are. I used to work in pubs, so I was like, oh, I know that brand.
Oh, Greene King. Yeah, so Greene King has two kind of facets. It has a brewing business, so those people might be familiar with Greene King through the brewing brands, but also is one of the biggest pub and restaurant and hotel operators in the UK. And I sit on the hospitality side. So in my role at Greene King, I essentially work on innovation again, creating basically taking brands and creating new concepts to be tested and kind of launched within the hospitality space. So I was really excited to go back to the hospitality industry, probably from my McDonald's days of having that direct connection with customers, being able to walk into a space and speak to them. So that was really, really exciting for me. But also just the concept of, I've never kind of created something where you're physically building a building that you can go into. I've created products that can go down the line, but creating a space. And I think it's such a fantastic experience. And the pub industry as a whole, I think, is really, really at a really, really interesting time. And I think Greene King are really leading the way of how to make the hospitality industry just more inclusive and more welcoming. And that is really at the heart of what I do and people who sit within our team do, is of bringing all of those insights. There's lots of gaps in terms of, people not feeling that pubs are welcoming, be it for lots of different reasons. And how can we create environments that do, are more welcoming and are more inclusive and do meet people's needs. And so it really is a role that actually enables me to draw from lots of different facets, be it my voluntary work, but also understanding how to really center the customer experience at the heart of, an idea or proposition. In this essence, it's a restaurant or a physical building that really meets their needs in a way that the industry doesn't now. So I think, Greene King are really leading that space, and I think it's a really exciting time to be at Greene King at the moment.
I mean, you're right. The pub industry is under pressure. You open the newspapers, well, the digital newspaper, because nobody actually reads them anymore. But you open the newspapers regularly, and there's a number of pubs shutting on a weekly basis. So innovation in that sector seems like it's definitely needed. Do you have a process you use for innovation, or anything you can share with us to kind of wrap up and give us a little insight for people thinking, yeah, but how do I do innovation? Is there any sort of steps along that journey that you go through?
Yeah, so to be honest, I think what you probably observe through this conversation and my career is, obviously I've worked with lots of different brands in lots of different industries and lots of different sectors. And probably what I would say is the process to get from idea to physical product or physical space is very similar. And I think that's probably why making that shift from an industry perspective I've been able to do, because actually the construct of how you do it is pretty much the same. It really does all center of twofold of really having a deep understanding of trends, your category, but also culture, combining that with having a deep understanding of the customer's needs, wants, and what is that power killer insight that enables you to spark, and actually then fits with the trends and where the sector's going as a whole. That's always a starting place, I would say, irrespective of industry or brand, or it's finding that. And I think once you've got that, then the process has always been the same of, writing, multiple ideas and concepts, and, going through a series of testing and, see what customers think, and really just making it very customer centric and being obviously led by them, but also keeping an eye on, from a trend perspective, where the future is going. So, go from idea to concepting to testing that concept to commercialization, to understanding how you're going to either operationalize it, how you can make a really compelling business case for it. Does it make money at the end of the day? And then I think the beauty of innovation in whichever sector it is, and I think particularly within the hospitality industry, is I almost see it as like you're the conductor, and you need to understand how you really leverage the orchestra, be it the organization, to bring to life your idea. So you've got everything from food to drink to service to HR to people to tech to all of the facets that make up the experience. And like your job is to kind of hold the, as a conductor, hold the tune and the beat, and beautifully get them to the kind of the end of the crescendo, which is it's brought to life in reality. And I think that's the same irrespective of whichever industry or category that you're in. That for me is actually the difference between a great idea that never makes it anywhere and a brilliant idea that makes it into the market. Is, I think, as an innovator, the ability to really leverage your organization to make it happen and to bring it into fruition. And it's the same within hospitality. I would say it's even harder in hospitality because it's an industry that's powered by people, and people were complex. And you're complex, and your brand has to come to life through that person, whether that be on a Tuesday at 10 a.m. or 9 p.m. on a Saturday. Your brand promises can be broken in an instant if that moment isn't as you realized it. So having that connectivity and really understanding how you leverage your organization, really understanding the people that work in your businesses and what motivates them, and how you can support them bringing your promise, and also what's in it for them as well, so that they feel motivated to, I think is a really interesting dynamic within the hospitality industry that I've not really experienced working within consumer goods, which is super interesting.
That is a superb answer and a great place to finish. So thank you very much for your time. I am going to put you on the spot for one more question.
Okay.
So hopefully a quick fire one. Do you have a book you'd recommend to people who've listened to this podcast and think, all right, definitely, where would I, what should I be reading? What's influenced you? Is there anything in particular that stands out from your background and things you've read over the years?
Yeah, actually. So it's a book that's not really like a typical marketing book or like a business book, but it was a book that I randomly picked up in a airport. And so, slight deviation, if I wasn't in marketing or brand, I loved science, and I really loved physics and chemistry at school. And I sometimes wish that somebody spotted that in me and like really nurtured that, because I probably could be doing something different now.
Yeah.
But the book that I would really recommend is by Stephen Hawking, and it's Brief Answers to the Big Questions. And the reason why I recommend that book, because as a brand, a marketer person, I think on a whole, you're quite curious. You think, that's where it sits with me. But generally, we're quite curious people, curious about customers and curious about how things work. And what that book does is it really helps frame and set up the world and where it could go and what it could be, in the concept of the progress of quantum physics, the big questions around human race, Earth, AI. And I think as marketers and brands, for me, it just really helped frame where we could be in the next 10, 20 years. And it has got me thinking quite differently, actually, about now, and thinking about where I take my brands for the future, where we could be, and what I need to be thinking about. It's a brilliant, brilliant book. Quite probably unexpected, as not a typical brand or marketing book, but it's
not how brands grow, that's for sure.
It's not how brands go. But I think as a book that really sparks big ideas and big thoughts, and looking at the earth and our role on the earth, and the role brands and businesses and products could play in where we potentially are going, I think I just found it hugely exciting. So probably a slightly bit of a geeky answer, but
no, listen, it's I'm a big believer in not just diversity, by kind of protected characteristics, but diversity of thought. And if everyone only reads the same books, we only ever get the same ideas coming. You might take something slightly different. So when I ask people questions and like this, and they come back with a book about astrophysics, or I was recommended a book about how the finance markets work by Benoit Mandelbrot, I think it was by. And you just like, most of the book I didn't understand, but the bits I did have a real impact on, okay, so if that's what moves that, and it just takes your brain into different places. So that's exactly why we asked that question at the end. So thank you very much for that.
No problem.
Sherice, thank you very much for your time. I've gone way over time, so apologies if I've made you late for your next meeting. But
okay.
Thank you very much for that. This has been an amazing way to start this mini-series, and just an amazing episode, a part of the whole 4 seasons. This is incredible. So thank you very much for your time, Sherice.
And thank you so much for having me.